Stanley, Scuba, Sailing, and Adventures. Scuba diving in the British Virgin Islands. Dive site, Vanishing Rock. The Vanishing Rock dive site is located near the northeastern tip of Salt Island. The dive guide indicates a maximum depth of 50 feet of water. The minimum skill level recommended is that of open water diver. This dive site is well protected from the north, semi-protected from the east, but it can get pretty rough if the easterly seas are extremely large. The Vanishing Rock dive site consists of a series of pinnacles running roughly north to south. They rise to break the water's surface. The major pinnacle is roughly 300 by about 75 feet. Most people circumnavigate it on a single dive, and that was our plan. There's a second pinnacle located about 100 feet to the north, and we plan to include that as well. The BVI Dive Guide recommends that you check currents for this area because they can be particularly strong, especially if you cross the pinnacle ridge. There are 2 mooring pins available at this dive site. The one we used is very close to the pinnacle, and there was a second about 100 feet away. The dive guide recommends that if you start from the second mooring, the one that's about 100 feet away, that you navigate toward the first closer mooring pin to start your dive. So it was very convenient for us that we went to the one closer to the pinnacle. From the mooring pin, we descended into a sandy patch surrounded by small ledges. We followed the ridge east, staying in about 30 feet of water. The ridge tapered down and we crossed to the north in about 20 feet of water. We did encounter a small amount of current as we made the crossing. Keeping the pinnacle to our left, we headed north. Here we encountered a large stand of pillar coral. There were many fish in this area, and we continued along the pinnacle for another 200 feet or so until we reached its end. I assume they call this dive site Vanishing Rock because the top of the pinnacle barely breaks the water's surface, and I would imagine in extremely rough water or extremely high tide, the rock may disappear completely. Here we see a white-spotted filefish. They typically range in size from 10 to 15 inches, reaching a maximum of about 18 inches. Usually found in depths between 20 to 70 feet of water. At first, when I saw this parrotfish, I thought something was wrong with it, and I got in closer. But you could see as he swims away, there was a little shrimp there, and he was getting a cleaning. I felt bad for disturbing it. The visibility on this dive was not stellar due to particulate in the water and the weather. So I tried to get shots closer to the bottom with the lights. It seemed to just work out better to shoot video that way. Also, I like to shoot that way on occasion. You get a different perspective getting close down to the bottom. I was surprised to find this Caribbean lobster so far out of his hole and decided to go in for a close-up. And he let me get kind of close. He was bumping into the camera here, and then eventually he scooted back into his little hole. I guess he'd had enough of that. There are a couple of 4-eye butterfly fish. They seem to usually travel in pairs. At least that's been my experience most of the time. Moving along the reef, you can see there's another parrotfish, I believe. Lots of interesting rock formations on the dive sites here in the British Virgin Islands. You can really get a feel here for the difference in the quality of the video when I shoot out into the open water And here we have some sunshine coming through. You can see that really changes things as well. There's still quite a bit of particulate in the water. I found this nurse shark here, and he was tucked in pretty good. I'm moving in to try and get a better shot. But notice how grainy the film gets here. I have the ISO set to auto on this GoPro, and I need to go back and look at those settings because the video just really degraded when I got back in this little ledge into the shadows, and there was a lot less light. I'll have to check the settings, and I don't know if it can be programmed in this manner, but I'd really like for the GoPro to change the resolution and not make the videos grainy. So really just, I'm normally shooting in 4K. If I could have just that drop to 2K and not have the ISO change quite as much, I'd rather lose some of the resolution and not have all that graininess. I really enjoyed this dive site. There were tons of little fish everywhere. I enjoyed it above and below the water. The Vanishing rock feature I thought was very interesting, and I mentioned that earlier in the video, how it just barely stuck out of the water, and you can just imagine that in really rough seas, that rock just totally disappearing. We just saw another parrotfish. There were quite a few of those on the site. Lots of Sergeant Majors. These are the striped fish that had a little bit of yellow on them. We just saw them to the left. Here you see another parrotfish in front of me. Again, lots of interesting rock formations here in the British Virgin Islands. And as I came around this corner, there was just a little bit of current. Very interesting geography on these dive sites. I usually mention my dive log in these videos, and I haven't really gotten any feedback, so I'm curious. Let me know, is that information interesting to you or not? Anyway, this dive started at about 2:30 in the afternoon, lasted just over 50 minutes. I recorded a maximum depth of 48 feet, an average depth of 32 feet, and the water temperature recorded by my dive computer averaged a comfortable 86 degrees Fahrenheit. See here, there are a couple more filefish. An abundance of fish on this dive site. I almost didn't see this lionfish at first, but he caught my eye, and I moved in for a close-up. I'm not terribly concerned about harassing the lionfish. They are an invasive species and are very destructive to the ecosystem. They have no natural predators here in the Caribbean. So I got a little aggressive with my camera. At the same time, I hoped and tried not to get pierced by its spines. I was really intrigued by this next fish, and I tried to get some good shots of the dorsal fin. I don't think I've ever seen one of these before. I'm pretty sure it's a gray triggerfish, but it's the brown variation of the gray triggerfish, if that makes sense. The dorsal fin looks just a little different on this fish than the ones pictured in my identification book. So if you have a different thought, or you think it's something different, or know it's something different, please leave me a comment and let me know if I'm wrong. But for right now, I'm going with this being a gray triggerfish, but the brown variation. Again, these dorsal spines are just so much longer than anything I've seen pictured. I'm just perplexed, or I don't know, perplexed is the right word. But very interested in this fish, and obviously I was because I spent quite a bit of time here filming these dorsal spines. Here's another white spotted filefish. As I mentioned, quite a few filefish on this dive site. And here we have another filefish. White spotted filefish. Great dive site. I enjoyed very much and would like to dive again. As I mentioned, this was a single tank dive. And only dive on this particular dive site. There seemed to be a lot more to see on the far side of the pinnacle, like the side away from the mooring pin. I mentioned earlier the location of this dive site is the northeastern tip of Salt Island. We actually accessed this via dinghy from our Anchorage, just off Cooper Island. A lot of these dive sites are accessible from a really great anchorage. It might be a little bit of a dinghy ride, but not bad at all. As I get further into this dive trip, this is day 4 and dive 15. There seem to be some consistent scenarios or themes throughout the dives and dive sites. None of the dives are particularly deep. The visibility is greatly impacted by the cloud cover and the amount of wind and weather, which makes sense in a shallower dive. But overall, great dive sites. Lots of little and medium-sized fish. Haven't seen a huge number of sharks across the dive sites, but lots of interesting geographic formations. I guess that probably has to do with the way the British Virgin Islands were formed. I believe they were formed by volcanic activity. Again, check me on that. If I ever say something that's wrong, just let me know, leave a comment, let everybody else know. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this dive.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment.